Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Well, as you know, my name is David Wynn Miller, but I punctuate my name. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, Benjamin Franklin, all punctuated the name same as I did. They were all 34-degree Master Masons. Now, I don't know if there's any Masons in the crowd, but I am a 92nd degree Mason. I know you've been taught that Masonry goes to 33 and 34 degrees for Grand Masters. The reason I'm a 92nd degree Mason is because in 1988 I broke the math interface in all 5,000 languages, proving that language is a linear equation in algebra. This hasn't been done in 8,500 years of written language. When I did so, I was able to unlock the 2/3 of all the words missing from all languages in the world, and I can write any sentence in any language frontwards and backwards with the same meaning. Once this was discovered, it completely 48 hours after I published on the internet, I had 2 Secret Service agents from Washington at my front door going, "Do you realize what you've done? You've just disqualified every treaty, trust, and contract in 8,500 years on planet Earth." I says, "Well," he says, "who did you tell?" I says, "Everyone." I says, "I sent out 100 videos, 20 hours long, including a 100-page report on the entire studies, to all nations of the United Nations and over 100 TV and news agencies around the United States. By doing that, I protected myself, because when you have a secret that is so profound that it would disqualify planet Earth, it would cause you to get shot. And at every seminar, by the end of the seminar, there's always a dozen people that walk up to you and say, "Why are you still walking around?" Well, as Pandora, destroyer of worlds. Now, you might think that that's a bad thing. The word destroyer, DE means no, and stroy is contract. Of is an adverb which connects to a pronoun in front of it. PRO means no, NO means no, and UN means no. So the word destroyer is a no, no, no word. Of is an adverb, ADV, it's a modifier. Modifiers connect the pronouns in front of it and modify the verb after it. Modification is change, change is motion, motion is action, and action is verb. Therefore, the word world becomes a verb. Do you live in a world of verb, or do you live in a world of a fact? As you all know, the word world is a fact. But because it's the destroyer of verb, I destroyed the world of verb in all 5,000 languages worldwide on April 6th, 1988. And so with that said, how did this come about? Well, in 1980, I went through a divorce. And in the divorce, Judge Stanley Miller said, "You cannot be a father to your children." And he took away my children. I'm going, "Why would you do that? I've been a good father for 10 years. And he goes, "Because I'm a judge," he says, "and I can take away people's children just because I can." I says, "Well, that's sex discrimination under the 1964 Civil Rights Act for equality." I says, "I'm going to prosecute you." And he says, "You can't prosecute judges." I says, "I beg the difference." I says, "I know what the law is. You swore to support the Constitution of the United States and the laws written by the United States Congress, Senate, and Legislature." I says, "That includes equality." I says, "If I don't have equality, that's discrimination." Pretty simple. So I prosecuted Judge Stanley Miller in 1980, and he was disbarred as a judge. 7 years later, Stanley Miller got reappointed again. 2 weeks later, after he was reappointed, I showed up in his courtroom, had him disbarred again 4 days later. Because 7 years later, 1994, got reappointed again. And I showed up in his courtroom 2 weeks after he got reappointed, had him disbarred a third time. 3 years later, he died in 1997. And never served much on the bench. Always was an administrator, but never a judge. As a result of that, when the judge took away my children, that violation, that breaking of my heart, put me on a path. That path was anger. You don't take away a parent's child. And the pain that caused, pain makes thought, thought makes wisdom, and wisdom grows to maturity. So as a result of that pain, I started studying. Now we go through 3 phases in life. You do not know what you do not know. Well, it's like putting your hand in fire. It looks pretty till you touch it and you get burnt. Well, you know what you don't know about why you got burnt. And I was aware of what I didn't know, so I had to study. And so because I studied, I learned about what the fire was. I learned about what the pain was. And from that, I then had knowledge. And when I had knowledge, I knew what I knew. And then I could become a teacher. In 1975, I became a college professor in Milwaukee. And I taught engineering and metallurgy, heat treating, and blueprint reading. So I've been a teacher now 75, so going on 38 years. I hold a professional license for college. I also have 3 PhDs and 535 college credits, 17 full-time years of college. Kind of got stuck in college. I really liked it. Worked third shift nights as a tool and die welder, and I went to school full-time days. I had but to fill in my spare time because I didn't sleep, I went ahead and had a second full-time job, and that was in real estate, teaching underwater welding. I had my own real estate company for 26 years, besides doing law from 1980 to present time, 32 years. I have 80,000 hours of law experience. And I've done 2,500 seminars, including over 1,000 TV and radio live performances. I did the programs on 9/11 on national television on what really happened there. There's only a few people in the world that have my background and credentials about what heat treating is, nuclear science, string theories and quantum physics. I have a 200 IQ. I read 400 words a second in math codes. It's something that's acquired art. You can give me an inch of paper and of documents, and I'll blow through it in about a minute. And I'll be able to tell you exactly about how many mistakes are in it and what to do about it. The program today is going to cover many different aspects. So I'm going to go through the parts of speech, which I wrote up here. It took 6 years of my life to discover this. It isn't really what you think it is. And what they teach you in school is not what you actually, is actually what's going on. And this isn't to insult anybody, but all of you have a second grade reading level. And it isn't just you, it's the entire population of the planet was instructed and through TV, radio, newspapers, and magazines to keep you in a second grade reading level, because that way they could harvest the entire population of the planet. There's a few individuals called federal judges and chief federal judges at a state level that control what's called parsing, syntax, grammar, and the secrets therein. When I broke the code in 1988, I went to the United States Supreme Court. I walked in there in 1989, and I says, I'm here to prosecute William Rehnquist, Chief Supreme Court Justice of the United States Supreme Court. Immediately I was arrested for threatening the United States Supreme Court judge and taken into a closed room. Well, when we got down in that room, I had 6 marshals standing shoulder to shoulder surround me, and William Rehnquist came down from up in his chambers to see me, and I says, I have your signed confession for treason against the United States people. I says, I've used parsing, syntax, grammar against your opinion since you've been in office. He says, okay, guys, you can all leave now. Mr. Miller and I are going to sit in this closed room. You've already frisked him. He has no weapons. He doesn't seem to be of stature that can overpower me. And we're going to have a little discussion. So for the next 2.5 hours, William Rehnquist and I became very good friends. And until he died and I removed him from office in June of 2005, we were pretty good friends. I taught him syntax, the math interface on grammar, and he taught me all the secrets of the procedures of judges. But a lot of the things he taught me, he was in error of, because 2/3 of all the words were missing from the procedures by which he wanted to formulate answers. Now, believe it or not, we are all actors in a play that have been already written. All of you believe that you have a certain amount of choice to make in life. But the fact is, and I will do this later this afternoon when we get into some history programs, that we are on timetables that run on 7-year international, on domestic bankruptcies and 70-year international bankruptcies. These bankruptcies control the planet for the last 6,500 years in all countries. All countries worldwide are controlled by the post office. Not the courts, not the judges, not the kings and queens, but the postmasters of the world run the entire planet, have for 6,700 years. Going all the way back to Pharaoh, henceforth the Masons. Now, a lot of you were in this room today. A room is a closed area, so therefore it's a court. I'm going to show you a dollar bill here, which you're all familiar with, and on the back of the dollar bill you have the eagle, right? Notice the eagle's wings are turned up. If you notice the eagle's wings here are turned down, that's because it's a phoenix. This is Vatican rule, banking. And the flag here has yellow fringe on it. And the yellow fringe flag changes the dimension of the flag. This is a maritime braid for commerce. The fringe changes the description of the flag. It's under Army Regulations 840-10, Chapter 2-6. Allows for fringe to be put on military flags for parades. But anything you put on top of the flag cancels the contract of what a flag is. So even though you think you're looking at a United States flag, United, UN means no, and ITE is citizen. A no citizens condition of state flag, controlled by Vatican banking. You're all under commerce. So who's the Vatican? They're postmasters. They work with Bern, Switzerland through the Universal Postal Union. On the 29th of September 2009, I did a seminar in Auckland, New Zealand. In that seminar, there were 90 Auckland tribal chiefs of the 1,200 tribal chiefs that live in New Zealand. I then made a statement that the post office since 1800 has never had a correct parse, syntax, grammar, law, rule, regulation, or code in any language with any people on planet Earth. As a result of that, 72 hours later, 3 days, the United States Postal Service, which since 2000 has had a quantumized postal treaty with myself and Russell Gould, my business partner, two of us make corporate. On the 27th of August 1999, I sued the United States of America for the flag of the United States. I filed a new quantumized mathematical patent on the description of the flag of the United States, 1 to 1.9. And he used the correct grammar, called parse, syntax, grammar. As a result of that, on August 12, 1999, I owned the patents to the flag of the United States of America. And on August 13th, all flags had yellow fringe put on it because they had to change the dimension of the flag. Now, I don't know if you remember in 1968 when the astronaut, for those of you that are old enough, and I don't think there's a whole lot of you here that are old enough, the astronaut stepped off his spacecraft into his footprints on the moon, turned around, looked at Earth, and says, "Oh, look at Earth is a vessel in a sea of space." With that one single sentence, Earth is a vessel in a sea of space. That's maritime. The entire world put yellow fringe on every flag in all 250 countries, in every courtroom, in church, and office, making everything on planet Earth maritime. Maritime is controlled by the DOT, Department of Transportation, which is controlled by the Postal Service worldwide, Bern, Switzerland. Bern, Switzerland was established on the 22nd of October, 1871 in Hawaii. It was the first city, first country as an independent nation to sign an international bankruptcy with Bern, Switzerland for 2 cents to transport cargo anywhere on planet Earth. And as a result of that, within a period of a year, all 250 countries for a 2-cent postage stamp signed up to give the post office authorization to transport vessels for a 2-cent postage stamp. Well, as you know, people were thinking of mail. Just send a letter. A letter is a vessel. Well, the word vessel includes cars, trains, planes, automobiles, overland stagecoaches, pony expresses, and human beings. And by doing so, they then captured all commerce on planet Earth by contract for a 2-cent postage stamp. A year later, it went up to a buck a letter. But they got their foot in the door, and that was all that was necessary. Somebody left a little tiny article sitting in a newspaper in January 8th, 1872, on a microfiche dish in Honolulu, Hawaii, in the Iolani Palace Museum Archives building. Hightower and I went into that building that day, and we wanted to look for a flag of Hawaii. And they said, we guarantee there is no information in this building from 1869 through 1875. And I'm going, no, why wouldn't there be anything? Hawaii's the center of the Pacific. Anything moving from east to west and west to east has to stop at Hawaii to get coal, C-O-A-L, for fuel, as everything ran on steam back then. So Hawaii then became the center of the entire Pacific Rim, hub to a wheel. Very, very important location. And by doing so, that started a series of events through the Universal Postal Union to capture the entire planet, throw the entire world into a postal zone. And this little tiny article, as it was put into place, was left there. Nobody thought anything of it. Well, we did find a flag on the newspaper. It had 8 stripes instead of 7. But there was also a little square 3 inches by 4 inches with the obituary. The obituary of the Portuguese Masonic Eye, the French Masonic Eye, the German scale, and the English scale. So now we had ordering all Masons in the Hawaiian Islands to come to Honolulu, Hawaii to pay homage to King Kamehameha V, who died on the 6th of December. I'm telling you the story because it is relevant to the beginning of the takeover of planet Earth. As a result of this, it takes a steamer 3 days to go from Honolulu out to Kona and Hilo and back again. So 3 plus 3 is 6. January 8th and 6th is January 14th. January 14th, all the Masons get together with the post office, Immigrations and Customs, the Supreme Court of Hawaii. Guess what building they're all in? They're all in the same building directly across from the Queen's Palace in Hawaii. Immigrations, Customs, the Lodge number 1 for the Masons, the Postmaster General of Hawaii, all in the same building. And they cut a treaty. The treaty says that there was, in 1848, a law was passed in Hawaii that if Hawaiians are dead or off the land for 20 years, the land is free for settlement. So they went ahead and the Masons signed this contract to take over the Hawaiian Islands. Now there's a law called the Rescissions Act. It goes all the way back to the Civil War. The Rescissions Act says that no law becomes legal for 3 days. And this 3-day notice, if you ever look at when contracts are signed, even when you all did your mortgages, either bought property or sold property, you couldn't pick up a check in your closing for 3 days. That's because of the Rescissions Act. That's Title 15, Section 1636 and 1639. Now, the Rescissions Act then went into effect on the 17th of January, 1872. Put a 20-year moratorium on it. It's January 17th, 1893, when the United States took over the Hawaiian Islands. For those that don't know anything about the Hawaiian Islands, takeover. Except it wasn't the United States of America that took over the Hawaiian Islands. It was the military, and the military is controlled by the post office. It was the United States Postal Service that took over the Hawaiian Islands. Now, as a result of this takeover, the injustice that people were a victim of went out there and sued the state court. The state court says, we don't have jurisdiction. You're in the wrong place. So the Hawaiians then went to federal court. They walked into federal court, United States District Court, and the district court said, you're in the wrong place. We don't have jurisdiction over you. You're a sovereign people. So they went to the United States Supreme Court, Washington, D.C. United States Supreme Court, Washington, D.C. You're in the wrong place. You sued the wrong people. They're going like, all right, we're being victimized. They stole their land. Who's guilty? So from January 17th, 1893, all the way up until January 6, 2009, nobody knew who was guilty. As a result of that, because I'm a Mason, and I syntax Manly Hall's The Secret of All Nations with Masons throughout the history of this world for 8,500 years. I have the book. There's only 5 copies on planet Earth, and I own one of them. And when I syntax that book is 18 inches tall, 1 foot wide, and 2 inches thick. It's now 6 inches thick because of all the missing words were put back into it. It covers everything on the planet, every religion, the tarot cards, witchcraft, grammar, all the parts of speech, parse, how words come together. It's got all the secrets in it. But the secrets were only written in adverb-verb, not prepositional phrases. So when I rewrote it with the correct parse syntax grammar, I then had missing secrets. I did the same thing to the Quran for the Muslims, and I did it to the Bible, King James Bible.